So, welcome. Hello. Order. This court is in session.
Sovereign's in the house.
Sovereign's in the house. Okay, so welcome. It's lovely to see so many of you. We are recording it. My very primitive. Oh, what's gone off? Can you all hear me okay, by the way? Okay. And can you hear me now? So would you prefer a mic? Yeah, you prefer a mic, okay. So the order of the day is basically, I just wanted to say thank you for turning up, which is great. I know some of you have come a long way. I know I have. Yeah, all day to get here, but it's worth it because it's a cause. So if you have paid, the housekeeping things, if you have paid, I will have your name on a list, and Leah has that list. So she will tick you off and give you a blue wristband. Ignore what it says on this, it's blue, so that's that. If you haven't paid, Leah will always also come down and see you, so if you can pay Leah. And then there's a list over there, if you want to put your email address down, because a couple of people have said to me they've tried to contact me through my email address, kizzy63@pm.me, and it keeps getting sent back, so they're not reaching me. And that could be weird, I don't know, but if I've got your email address, then I can keep you posted of what we're doing. Okay, so that's that. The other thing is, I think we have to give a big thanks to Norman Young, Norrie. Is his wife in the house? Shona, is his wife here? Yeah? No? So Norman Norrie contacted me through the Richard Bogues show, through the Lawful Remedy, and said, would we come to Scotland? And we said yes. And I'd say that if anybody wants us to come, we will come. We can make it happen. Obviously, there are fees involved because we've got to get here, we've got to stay somewhere, so we have to sell tickets. But Norrie made it happen on the basis he just put his hand in his pocket and bought 40 tickets and sent them to his friends. So I don't. Does anybody know Norrie? Is anybody here on behalf of Norrie? Wow, that's incredible.
That's the illegal fiction.
Yeah. Because my concern was we were just going to come up, all of us, and talk to 40 chairs, because he bought 40 tickets, and if he hadn't passed them on to his friends and family, we would just be talking to the chairs. So, it's great. Who's come here because of Richard Bogues show, The Lawful Remedy? Yeah, a few of you. And who has come here through Chris Coverdale? It's not a competition, just want it's not, it's going to be okay. Yeah, sorry, that's going to be competitive. But yeah, I just want to know how you're hearing about us, that's the main thing, because we really have to spread the word, don't we? It's all a numbers game. So a big thanks to Norrie, although he's not here. So we're going to send some love out to him because he's actually in the nick for 4 weeks. They've locked him up for 4 weeks. I don't know the ins and outs, so I can't get hold of him, but he's been incarcerated for fighting the system. So, if we send him some love and light and all that and all good things, because we are challenging the system. The order of the day, in a minute I'm going to pass the mic over, so all these guys are going to introduce themselves. We're going to break for a tea break about 11-ish, 11:15. Lunch about 1. Now, if you want, they can put on a round of sandwiches. If you want sandwiches, there's again the list. Leah will be sending the list, so we need that for the tea break, and then we can put the order through. It's just various sandwiches or ham, cheese or something, $5.50 for the round, or you can pop into town. So the lunch break will be about 1, we start again at 2, then we'll have another break in the afternoon. Now we're also going to have these breakout rooms because these guys have expertise on certain subjects. So some of you might want to know specifics about council tax or specifics about whatever, PCNs or about utilities. So we're going to have a breakout, possibly, depends what you all want. We are here for you, to give you the answers. What I would also ask is try not, it's really hard because we've all got a story. We all want to tell the story. I did this and they came and knocked on the door and all this sort of stuff. We understand that, but if you start telling your story, you won't get the information that you need from the expert. So try and not give us your story if you didn't mind. Chat with us in the break. What else was I going to say? I think we're also going to just give it out to questions to start with, then we'll have these breakouts with the conversations depending on who wants what information. I know there was something else I was going to say, sovereignty. So last night we were talking about, it is a numbers game, it's a numbers game. We have to come together, we are coming together. Look, this is amazing. and we need to stay united, and we are winning. I know it doesn't seem like it, but we have. It's a numbers game. When there's enough of us, then we can take action, and you know, we know. So I'm going to start off to say I'm Karen Dodd. I'm the founder of the Freedom Network. I work with Richard Rose on the Lawful Remedy, and that's how we've got all these guys together, and there's a lot more of us behind the scenes, and it's growing, and we need to grow it in Scotland. If you want us to come, you know, to another event, we'll do it. Just contact me through the email, and I'm just going to hand it over to who's on my left, to Pete, Sovereign Pete, and he's going to introduce himself. So they've all got a couple of minutes each, and then it'll come back to me and questions.
Okay. Hi everyone, I'm Sovereign Pete. Obviously that's not my real name, it's just a nickname. It was given to me about 4 years ago when I was doing a talk at a pub, and people were trying to learn about common law and all this sort of stuff, and I steered them in the right direction. I can already see some Sovereign Project members in the audience. There we go, nice one. About 4 years ago, we all know about the lockdown nonsense, right? Tipped the world upside down, really pissed me off. So I thought, right, I'm going to do something about that, so I come up with the idea of the Sovereign Project. I've been studying the system for about 30 years, since I got onto the internet about 1992 when I bought my first computer. I've written 3 books, 3 of them are over there if you want to have a check them out. Not selling books, the information in those books are actually free. You can download them on my website. So I set up the Sovereign Project. It was just me and another friend. We set up the website. I spoke to Mark Devlin. I did a podcast on his channel just to say to everybody, I've done this website with a whole load of free information, go and help yourself. That podcast blew up, did about 50,000 views, and the next thing I knew, I was getting contacted by other podcasters, and I was doing 2 to 3 podcasts a week for about 2 years. I've done over 100 plus podcasts. I've been on all of them. And the network, the Sovereign Project network exploded. So we've got 17 plus workshops operating, we've got chess clubs operating, we've got members of my team, we've got Tony runs the Sovereign Project workshop, we've got Karl, he runs my network now, we've got a team running my social media, we've got 50 people in the task force, we're global, we've got members in 75 countries now, and we have on average 10 people a day joining the Sovereign Project learning this stuff. I then teach people or show people how the system works. It does take a lot of work and effort, and you've got to study this stuff, but the information is free. Once you've actually learned this stuff, you will become sovereign. You'll lose the slave mindset, you'll become sovereign, and then you will know how to play this game. So ask me any question you want today. No personal questions, please. Because I don't give out personal knowledge. I get tracked down by lots of people trying to set me up and asking me personal knowledge, and I go away. So, ask me any question, I'll explain to you how the system works. Also, what I want to say is I will work with a lot of other people. I mean, I think Chris does great work. Pete Wilson's a friend of mine. We do great work. There's others that I actually work with. Doesn't mean, and of course Dave on the end there, doesn't mean we agree on everything. Okay, so we are, like Karen said, we all have to work together. Okay, so I will work with people who like constitutions or Magna Carta or anything like that. Okay, so I will work with multiple groups as long as they're not scamming anyone. And by the way, don't pay large sums of money like £3,000 and then sign an NDA to a group who's saying we'll get rid of your mortgage. Don't do that. Okay, so there we go. So I'll pass it on to the next person. We all know Chris.
Right, thank you very much. My name is Chris Coverdale. I started objecting to what was going on back in 1979 when I joined with Bruce Kent in CND and various other things against the war. I kept running a business. I didn't pay a lot of attention to it until I lost 2 businesses through fraud back in 95 and 98. And as a result of that, I started to investigate fraud and corruption in business and government, in boardrooms particularly, and in high levels of government departments. I was looking at government corruption in the Foreign and Commonwealth Office in 2002, after we had been at war with Afghanistan for 6 to 8 months. And I was pretty horrified by the killing that was going on. Anyway, I looked in the Foreign and Commonwealth Office and I discovered that we had been deceived, the whole of us, Parliament, the armed forces, the public, the legal profession, everybody had been deceived for 75 years over the illegality of war. War is always illegal. When we signed the UN Charter as a nation, we agreed never to threaten or to use force and to settle all disputes peacefully. Now, I will go into a lot of detail about this today in the session that I hope we will have at some point for those people who are particularly interested in it. What I want to do today is to help people focus on all the lawful remedies that are available to us to change from a tyranny to a true democracy, where we take the decisions. In other words, government of the people, by the people, for the people, rather than government of the people, by the elite, for the bankers, which is the current situation. So I will be going into that in detail, and I hope by the end of the day, in particular, you will all have with you a lawful taxation trust that will enable you, it's your passport to freedom, tax freedom. You never need to pay any more tax or any money to the government at all when you have filled in that form and had it witnessed. So the main purpose of today is to enable you to have a system available for you, putting all your taxes in trust. Okay? So that's what I'll be talking about. And do come along.
Turn it off, Chris.
Oh. All right. So hopefully everybody will have something to take away with them that it can get into action. I will also be talking about 4 other or 5 other lawful remedies available to us apart from taxation trusts. Okay. Over here.
Oh, not waiting for you either.
Hello. Oh, there you go.
Being sensitive.
All right. So my name is Peter Wilson. That's about it, really. I've been talking about sort of like how to be sovereign, really, is the way that a lot of people would call it. But the way that I look at it is that you are man and woman. And a man and a woman standing under the Creator is how we actually do it. So that's really where I come from, is like, well, we're all man and woman, not men and women, it's different things, different terminology. You have to start learning the language and knowing what they're actually talking to you is a completely different language. It's not what you think it is. And all of the words that they are using, they are spelling, all right, casting spells on you all the time and twisting everything and turning it into something different. We have to figure out what is true. Not truth, true, because the truth is an opinion. The truth is a legal word. We don't want to say legal words. So this is where we're coming in to try to learn the actual language that they're tricking you with and conning you into paying taxes and stuff like that, which you don't need to do. A man and woman can't pay tax. Only a person can pay tax. So stop being a person and realise that you're a man and woman, then you don't have to worry about that. Okay? But anyway, so various different things that we work on. Sometimes I like to actually step into the public, and when I say going into the public, I'm talking about using their rules against them. Stuff like GDPR, microphones, use their, when you can use it in the public and step into the public and use your legal fiction as a chess piece, okay? So you actually can use it if you do it correctly, where you can fight them in a different way. So you can be public and private, and you just keep swapping from one and the other. You can become a person when you need to actually use your person, or you can just stay as a man or a woman and use it that way. So there's various different ways that I can give you information, let's put it that way, share knowledge on how to actually do that if you wish. So, and again, any questions that anyone has, just feel free to ask.
Good morning. I'm Tony Rose. I'm probably one of the newest into all this amongst the panel here today. With regards to common law, I was put onto that by a guy called allegedly Dave. I don't know whether any of you probably heard of him. He was part of a community group or a cooperative group that I belong to in Eastbourne. So 600 miles away that we travelled up from yesterday, so it's good. And I've not looked back really, but I came against a stumbling block trying to reassure myself that what I was doing was right. And I came across the Sovereign Project, and I haven't looked back from them. And as Pete mentioned, I ran a couple of workshops for him down on the southeast. And I'm now a living man. Right, I'm not a person, I'm a living man. Sovereign through and through, apart from the tax I pay on my state pension, which I'm trying to change now as well. I knew something wasn't right with the system back in the early 2000s when I started researching nutrition, because my father died at 62. And I found out lots and lots, and the way that they was manipulating food and drink and poisoning water, etc., etc., which all comes into everything that they're doing to us today. Okay, so I've been doing the common law thing for 4 years now, but I've been studying nutrition and researching that since 2004. So I've done a few Lawful Remedy Roadshows with Richard Bogues, and Karen invited me to do one when I met her at the Uprise and Shine Festival at Hope, Sussex, which is a great place down in Liverpool. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Gill Lindsay. Like Tony, I'm a relative newbie to this. Although I have been doing my own notice writing since 2021. Like everybody here, I obviously realised that there was a lot wrong with the systems a long time ago, but I didn't realise the extent of the corruption until the scandemic came along. So started hearing about common law and what the council really spent the money on, and it's nothing like, I mean, prior to that I'd always paid everything religiously. You have to pay your council tax and so on and so forth. But I stopped paying that one first, and then I stopped paying everything else. And so I've learnt how to do lots of notices. It's been quite experimental, and I've listened to all these guys and taken bits and pieces. It's been a bit random at times, but for the most part, I've done all the utilities, I've done PCNs, I've done a speeding fine, and I haven't paid council tax for 3 years. And I'm absolutely determined that they're not getting a penny out of me, no matter what they chuck at me. So I've had a few debt collectors round. That's okay. At first my heart was beating fast. The last one, I was quite blasé about it. I knew how to get rid of them with very few words. And I'm absolutely for what's right and what's wrong. I've always been a bit of a rebel, so I just stand up for what I believe is right, and I'm learning a lot. Don't have the knowledge that they do, but I'm learning, and the difference between lawful and legal. And it interests me how you can make a choice. That for me is sovereignty and freedom, to use that choice to use your legal fiction when it's advantageous to you, but still stand in your living man-woman sovereignty. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Great to see you all. There's a common theme going here now, because I'm also new as well. This is my first ever. So go easy on me. Anyway, I've been with Pete now on the Sovereign Project about 1.5 years. But most importantly, about 7 months ago, Pete introduced me to the task force, which is a number of sovereigns that come together to complete a lot of projects, to make things happen, make that massive change. So what I've done in the last 7 months, I'm now head of the social media. And I also, I'll have to raise my voice, I also coordinate our workshops and chess clubs. So first of all on social media, I run all the channels on Instagram, TikTok, etc., etc., etc. Because there's a lot of men and women out there, just like yourselves, that are confused, that don't quite understand. They've got some parts of the jigsaw pieces, and they're trying to work it out. Well, we figured it out. We've got the information, so we're now helping them. We're doing outreach to say, we've got the information, we've got remedies, we've got the paperwork, we can show you how to use it and get the right mindset. So I spend a lot of time on social media, finding men and women, bring them to our website, get them signed up, get them on the courses, and get them the information that they can then learn, so they can start to see the deception. What I also do as well, I coordinate our workshops and our chess clubs. And this is weekly live face-to-face workshops where sovereigns, like-minded people, men and women can get together, they can learn together, they can network together, and they can stand together, which is so, so important. So first of all, the workshops, there's two types that we have. A workshop is where we have a, should we say, a workshop leader, and they will show you how the system works. They will give you the information, whether it's watching videos, handing out paperwork, and they will support you to get that learning. Our chess clubs are the next one up. Chess clubs is where you start to take action. You've done the learning, you've got the information, and you say, right, I'm now going to make a stand. I'm going to now start to use my paperwork. I'm now going to create my coat of arms. I'm going to now start to protect me as a sovereign. That's what our chess clubs do. We've also got lone knights as well. So lone knights is an individual, a man or woman that's in a rural location or a town or a city and they think they're alone. So we put them on our map. If any of you have been onto our website and checked out our workshops and chess clubs, we now have a map so you can see where everyone is and we can now start to build the network. And this is my most important role. This is the important role, is you're going to learn a lot of information from these fantastic people here today. I shouldn't use the word people, man and women. You're going to learn a lot of information. What do you do after that? You have to network. You have to network in your local area. We're now global. I'm now communicating with many people in Australia, New Zealand, Copenhagen, Denmark, Greece, Texas, Canada. We're expanding globally. But here, in the jurisdiction of the UK, we're growing massively. And I've got about 45 workshops and chess clubs that are soon to open. I've got loads and loads of men and women that are standing up saying, I'll be a lone knight, I want to network, I want to find like-minded people in my area. Because we've got a plan, we know what we're doing. Right? He's going to talk about that today. So once you've got the education and you've networked, we're then going to take it to the next stage. But I'll dangle a carrot there, and Pete's going to explain later on what that carrot is, and it's mind-blowing. So I'll hand it over.
Right, morning all. David Adelman's people's lawyer. Now, that's not a trade description issue, because I used to be a solicitor. So I've had a few people sort of trying to knock me for that, but I really was a solicitor. Back in the day when I was an effing moron. Right? An idiot, total idiot, absolutely clueless, but just going through the motions. So that's what we're doing. We're coming out of idiocy, because the matrix is built on idiocy, and we're going into something more intelligent and more rational and more coherent. My focus, we've just heard about networks, and they're brilliant. You've got to have networks. But I go deeper into the individual. So I started on myself about a decade and a half ago, maybe nearly 20 years now, no, 12 years. Where I started to, I had an income stream issue. In fact, I was skint. I had no money coming in, right? And so I taught myself to live without much of an income. So that meant not paying bills. So I'd have the gas people coming around with the police, but I'd studied, right? I taught myself proper law as opposed to the bullshit that you get at law school. And I just said to the police from behind a closed door, excuse me, but is this a criminal matter? Oh, right, no, oh no, we don't need to be here. Yeah, and I also read out, if you look at the personal protection card, you'll see that there's section 26 of the Criminal Justice and Courts Act 2015, which says that they can go down for 14 years if they assist a third party to make a gain from your loss. And so the moral is you just have to know their rules. You have to know who you are and you have to know their rules. Knowing who you are gives you the impetus, it gives you the power, gives you the strength, but that's not enough. In order to get what you could call a peaceful, happy outcome, you need to know the extent to which they can go legitimately before even they back off. Quick anecdote, or two or three, very quick, because we need to move on, obviously. To give you an idea of how I operate. So you've had one anecdote, police at the door with the gas agents, and as soon as the police go, the gas agents soon lose interest. Because it's all a pantomime. It's all a mind fuckery. That's all it is. Okay? Now I'm not saying that people don't genuinely suffer break-ins. They do, but normally when they're out. Because if you're in, you just say, I'm at the front, I'm at the door, human barricade, you can't get past me, health and safety. That's another day's work. During the lockdown, or business shutdown, it wasn't a lockdown really, I was in a shop in Wales in 2021, And I went in, and the woman behind the counter said, "Excuse me, sir, but we wear masks here in Wales." And I said, "Well, I can't do that." She said, "Why not?" I said, "Because it's against the law." And she just went, "Boo." So they don't have the mental energy to argue with you. All they can do is read from the script, and as soon as you challenge it in any way, they're gone. So it's up to you to just challenge it. If she'd have asked me, if she'd have had the mental energy to say, "What do you mean by against the law?" I would have said against the law of one, against the law of do no harm. Do no harm includes do no self-harm. So I'm not going to block my own airways, am I? Because that's self-harming. You should take me away in a van, quick. And the other happy story is based on the school protection card. So that's another, you've got the personal protection card and the school protection card on your seat or under your bum, wherever, however you're sitting. And recently a mum told me that her son, who's 14, is using this, and I'll walk you through it later if I get time. There's 3 remedies on it, and you hit them one by one. You start with a remedy in commerce, then statutory remedy, and finally international law remedy, United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. Because this is my specialism. I've written a book about education called School No Place for Children. Oh, I did well there, get the first plug in the first 5 minutes. Right, thank you. And because that's, even though I'm not a father, my passion is, I've always worked with kids. Not always, but since I was, say, 14, worked with kids. Teaching a card game, which is, when I was defunded, that's when I had to learn to live without an income. Anyway, long story short, she was saying that this card is giving the boy power to do what he wants at school. So he's not complying with anything. He's not wearing a tie, not doing homework, not doing detentions, and he's, you know, so it can be done. But you need the tools and you need the confidence. Now, some kids, bless them, don't need anything. They're just defiant. And I would say, and we had a conversation this morning over breakfast, let them be defiant. We need more defiance. If you shut down their defiance when they're 10, 12 and 14 or even earlier, then you are actually going against your own sovereignty. Because what's the point of us having sovereignty if we're not passing it on to the next generation? We're wasting our time. Because we'll move on to another level, in other words, we'll die, and we'll leave behind these kids that we could have taught sovereignty to, but we forgot. We just didn't think of them, because we were too up our own arse. Okay, so we need to pull our heads from out under our own arses and think about the generations coming through. That's my priority. All right? So thanks for that, and
great. There's a lot of you, isn't there? Blimey. So I think what we should do is really start off with a question. Has anybody got a question? And if you have, hopefully you have, else we'll go home. Hopefully someone's got a question. If not, we will fill the day. Don't worry about that. As you can see, we've got a lot of information to share. And Chris has just gone off because I did also want to ask who has come specifically to hear Chris speak about the Scottish, what was it again? Scottish law, Scottish tax? The taxation trust that is specific to Scotland. I think he had was it last night he was supposed to have a gathering, but it was cancelled. So a lot of people have come specifically to hear Chris talk about that. Could you put your hands up?
We had them on Friday at Edinburgh.
Right, you had him on Friday night. Well, he was supposed to be doing something, I think, on Saturday. It's a shame he's just gone because I wanted to. I mean, I'll come.
Down there if you want to chase him.
Yeah, I'll ask him when he comes back because I know we might have that breakout room, and it's relevant to everybody. Then he can talk about it to the whole lot. But if not, then
people want to know about tax.
Yeah, we can. Well, is there a question? Is there a specific question first about anything? Yes, sir.
A lot of people are concerned about.
So everybody can hear you.
A lot of people are concerned about the difference between English law and Scottish law.
Right,
So, but obviously you're well aware of why we're here.
I don't know how this might work.
You know what's on that.
Yeah, I'll come and get it if that doesn't work. Otherwise, we can just pass it to the next question.
Yeah, channel 05.
1, 2.
Oh, I think I know why this is putting out batteries flat.
Oh, the battery's flat.
Yeah, battery's flashing. Battery's flat on that one.
This one's 05.
And that's also 05 as well.
I think you put them so that they all, yeah.
All right.
Testing. No, that one's the right, isn't it?
That's off. Back on. 1, 2, 1, 2.
That sounds like fun.
1, 2. 1, 2. I'm sure the channels haven't been switched on. 1, 2. You travel with them.
2, 1, 2. That's something there. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay. Seems to be working now. Got a bit of feedback. 1, 2, 1, 2. Yeah. Switch that one on. Okay. Right. I hear this a lot. I hear things like, Scottish law, English law, and all the rest of it, right? And that doesn't work. I'm just gonna. I don't need a mic. I don't need a mic.
Keep going.
I don't need a mic. I've done rooms bigger than this. Without a mic.
Can you hear in the back?
Can you hear me, everyone? Yeah. Okay, nice one. Right. So I hear this all the time. Does it work in Scotland? Does it work in England? Does it work in Canada? Scotland law, English law, all this sort of stuff, right? Well, you've lost the game already because you've made the mistake of calling it Scottish law in English law. It isn't. Most people have made the mistake of understanding what Scotland is and England and all the rest of it. So they've made that mistake. So, Scottish law. Scotland, all caps, is a corporation. Okay? Let's start with the basics. We've all heard of the UK. In fact, I'm going to make it really simple for you, so hopefully everyone will understand the scale. So you've heard of the UK, okay? United Kingdom, right? So if I've got my right foot and I am standing in the United Kingdom, let me know when this foot is standing in Scotland, or England, or Wales, or the British Isles. And it's impossible, right? Suddenly it makes sense. We're not talking land at all. We're talking corporations. So Scotland is a corporation. It is not the land, okay? Scotland, the corporation, has corporate policies. They call it law, but it's not law. It doesn't apply to you. So this is how it works. Everyone has been scammed to operate within a corporate jurisdiction, and you don't even realise it. I'll give you an example. The roads out there. Are they Scottish roads? No. If I'm in England or the UK, are they UK roads? No. They're just roads. They belong to us, the living man and woman. We equally share them, and no one has the right to claim them. And the UK doesn't. Scotland doesn't. Wales doesn't. What they actually do as corporations is they create a corporate jurisdiction and then trick you into entering that jurisdiction. And they do that by you registering your car. So you take your private car. I'm going to use layman language here because I know a lot of people say, oh, I shouldn't use people, I shouldn't use persons, I shouldn't use understand, but I'm going to use layman terms here, right? So you take the car, it's yours, it's privately owned. You register it. You've just given it away. You've basically entered into a trust setup. So what you've done is you've took the equitable title and the controlling interest of that car and you've given it to a corporation called the UK. You are left with nothing more than the user rights. And if you look at the logbook, it says registered keeper. You are the keeper of government property that is now operating within a corporate jurisdiction. Then what happens? By the way, they're telling you this. They tell you this to your face. They laugh at you. Okay? Because what happens next? They literally put a license plate on that government property. What does license mean? Asking permission. So now you have to ask permission to use government property, which is the car, under license, got a license plate. What does that mean? It means you now need a driver's license. So you've got to get a driver's license, which is allowing you to drive government property. Now it's worse than that, because what have you just done? You've accepted the Highway Code. The Highway Code is a corporate jurisdiction. It's a set of corporate policies that now apply to you because you're the employee of that corporation. Okay? By the way, an employee does not mean you get paid. It means you're entwined. It means you're part of it. That's what it means, employed. All right? Doesn't mean you get a salary. although you can ask for one. So as an employee, you now drive government property, you are now under their rules. Think of it like McDonald's. If you go and work for McDonald's, you have to follow McDonald's corporate policy, which means you've got to wear a uniform, you've got to have a name badge and all the rest of it. It's exactly the same thing, okay? So now, the speed limits, you've all heard about 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, okay? That's corporate. It is a corporate speed limit. It doesn't even apply to you. It applies to the car that's registered to a corporation because they own the car. Now you begin to see how the game is laid out. You can begin to play it. So go back to Scotland. There's two Scotlands. Scotland, lowercase, title case. That would be the name of the land and you walk upon it. Uppercase, that's the corporation, right? That's the rules. How do you tell the difference between the name of a land and the name of a corporation? The name of the corporation has a government. The name of the corporation has rules, it has a parliament. He has a constitution. They're telling you this to your face. That's the difference. The land does not have government. The land does not have a constitution. The land does not have any rules. You've heard of law of the land? Law of the land is the sovereign's law. My law, your law, in your own dominion. And we can get into that a little bit later. So, the trap that you fell into is, Scotland law. You fell into a legal trap. You've entered into a legal jurisdiction. And if you start playing that game, you'll lose. And they'll know it. Okay? I'm going to try and show you throughout the day, if we've got time, is how to use your law. Okay? You can use action statutes if you want to play that game. As long as you know what you're doing. There's too many people that don't know what they're doing. They don't realise they're operating in a corporate jurisdiction and they're trying to find action statutes. Here's the thing. People are trying to find magic paperwork. They want a magic form that they can somehow find, sign, send off, and all their problems go away. You've lost the game because you're using someone else's form. Here's the thing. If you fill out a form, you are now operating in their jurisdiction. You're done. You have to learn to use your paperwork. Here's another thing I'll add this. What does authority mean? People get this wrong all the time. Authority. Author of. That's where the word authority comes from. It means I create authority. Authority comes from me. This is one of the things I ask most people when I meet them. And I test them. And I'll ask them, where does authority come from? If they say government, lost, go away, you're a slave, you've lost the game, I can't help you. If they say it comes from me, okay, I'm dealing with a sovereign. Now I can help you, right? So people say things like, oh, what do I do? The authorities are after me. Nothing, I can't help you. You've given it up. You've just said authorities. You've just said someone has a higher authority than you. You've lost the game. So authority comes from you. So author of. This means my word is law. Because I speak it. Alright? I'm not going to quote someone else's law because it's theirs. Constitutions is someone else's. Alright? My name is not on it. If my name's not on it, it doesn't apply to me. Get rid of it. So there's the mistake most people end up doing. They're going, oh, I hear this all the time. They go, oh, does sovereignty or common law, does it work in Scotland? You lost. You've lost. Okay? So we'll get into that in a bit. Okay? Hopefully that's answered that. Okay? So please don't.
Are you happy? Is that on? No, it's not working.
I don't think it's working.
So are you happy with that answer?
Yeah.
Yeah? I can't watch the gentleman over there that
Yeah,
asked
I
questions, so
don't want to take up the whole day.
So, thank you.
Karen, can I add something?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, we have to be very careful about the words that we choose. So, law can't be written down. Right? You can't write down law. You can only feel it. Okay? You can't write down law. Because if you could write it down, how do you know you've not got it? How do you know you've got it right? Who wrote it down? What was their intention? You know, it's just hearsay. Anything written down is just hearsay. So, real law operates directly from above through my system. That's what I meant when I went in that whale shop and I said, can't help you, it's against the law. That's the only law there is. So we need to use different language. If the government refer to their rules, then we refer to them as government policy, like Pete said. Government policy, policemen and women are policy enforcement agents.
Teachers are government, curriculum, policy enforcement agents and delivery and enforcement agents. We need a different vernacular. And it's changing that vernacular. You'll start to reprogram yourself. Because if you keep using the wrong language, then you're not going to get to where you need to be. Or you'll get very close but then bounce back. So it's not law, it's policy or rules or regulations, and it's offers. Very briefly, there's an ancient 1796 Cruden versus Neal case in America. And the Supreme Court said, no man or woman is bound by the rules of a government or state unless they accept them, consent to them. Now, if you fill out forms and get registered to vote, your consent is presumed. So we need to stop filling out forms. That's the first thing that we need to do. We need to go paper-free, paperless. You know, if you really, really ever have to fill out a form, make sure you find an alternative and create your own way of communicating and send that form in blank. You know, but more about that later. So just be wary of filling out their forms, and also be wary of your autograph or signature, because that's taken as consent, obviously, or contract. And so another example that Chris would appreciate is that nobody has ever been prosecuted for failure to pay tax if they didn't file a tax return. So it's the filing of the tax return, and you can even take the piss. You can file it but not sign it. Nobody across the world, not just England or Scotland, no one has ever been prosecuted for not filling in paperwork. There's no such thing. So you only ever, in effect, confess your sins, isn't it? It's confession. That's all it is. When you fill out forms and sign, you're confessing. Why confess? You haven't done anything wrong. So we need to remove the guilt and the shame. And that's back to the schooling. Everything comes back to schooling and indoctrination.
Can
I just add something to that? You use their system against them. So you need to know their system. But don't let them use their system against you. So once you're sovereign, there's lots of templates out there that you can look at. But don't just paste, copy and do it. Use the templates to get the information that you require to do your own paperwork, your own affidavits, your own notices, your own indemnity bonds. Because they're unique to yourself, okay? But you need to use their system against them.
So was the gentleman asking what response, what the difference is in the responses to the corporate?
We can get into that.
To the corporates from Scotland and England, because there are some differences in the responses that you...
Oh, okay, let's get, do you want to get to that? Right, let me get to this. It depends on what game you want to play. If you want to play Acts and Statutes, then yes, Scotland Acts and Statutes are different to England Acts and Statutes, right? But don't play that game unless you absolutely know what you're doing. You've got to learn to use your paperwork first. And this is where you use your documentation, you write your notices, like Tony says, do your affidavits, notices, all this sort of stuff, right? You use your paperwork, you do not use theirs. I'll give you an example. Say speeding ticket. Everyone's got one of those speeding tickets. It comes through the post, right, in a form. This is the same for Scotland and all over the place. In fact, every country does the same setup. What the police are actually doing is sending you an offer to pay. Now, going back to the registered keeper, remember you've registered the car now, so technically what you've done is you've accepted the Acts and Statutes of the UK, and within that, and within the Highway Code and all this, you've agreed to give the name of the registered, sorry, got to get the terminology right, you've agreed to give the name of the driver upon request. It's all in the language, right? That's all that you've agreed to do. Now what the police are doing is they know that, so they send you an offer, and they're saying, give us the name of the driver, fill out the form. And that is exactly where people fail. Because you're filling out the form, you can't read, you don't know what the form says, it's all in boxes, it's all got italics and bold and all the rest of it. Well, what you've just done, not only are you fulfilling your obligation to hand over the name of the driver, but you've also agreed to take points and pay the police. And now you're going to get 6 points and a £1,000 fine. You've contracted to that part. So, what do? You don't use their form. You comply to what you've agreed to, which is give the name of the driver, but you use your paperwork. So you write out your letter, your notice, and you send it off and say, yes, on the day of question, the vehicle was driven by Fred of the family Smith. Thank you very much. Hugs and kisses. Trust me. You've now done your part. But the police are trapped. They can't do anything, right? Because they can't process their form and now hit you with 6 points and £1,000 fine because you haven't agreed to that. Now you get a letter back and they'll say something on the reason like, we can't accept that paperwork. Really? Okay. So you sent another one of your letters. Right, okay, please give me the law that says I have to fill out your form. You've got 14 days. They can't do that. All right? Another one, some people are filling out the form but not signing it, sending it off, right? It's another thing. Then they'll send it back, the police will send it back and they'll say, you haven't signed it, you've got to sign it. Really? Okay, so you send another letter to them and says, right, give me the law that states I have to sign that. There isn't one. And then they've lost the game again. You will not find any legislation out there that compels you to do anything, including tax. Tax, by the way, is voluntary and it's contractual. Contractual. In other words, you have to enter into a contract and agree to pay the tax. If you haven't, they can't tax you. That's why Dave mentioned about if you do self-assessment and you register to vote. If you register as self-employed, no, you've lost the game. You've just contracted. Right? That's how they're trapping you with all this paperwork. Right? So people have got to learn to use their paperwork first, and you go down that route. Now, acts and statutes. Sovereign Project, we do use acts and statutes, and we've got loads of information, and we will, when we do debt validation process, we'll give you protocols and acts and statutes. There's a council tax remedy that's free to download on the Sovereign Wiki. We do quote acts and statutes, but what we do, like Tony said, we apply to them. Not to me. So I do not say things like, you violated my Human Rights Act. I do not say that, I will never say that. Why not? Because what I've just done is I've placed myself, you got it, I've placed myself in their jurisdiction because I've just said my human rights. Human, colour of man, you're not man. So only man has rights. Everything else does not. People have no rights, persons have no rights, human have no rights, registered keeper has no rights. This is how the system works. It's all commerce, and what they will do is they'll create a title, a legal title, and if you accept that legal title, then they can do anything they want to you. It's like an employee. If I hire you, and you're the sweeper, and I'm the CEO, you've got to do as I say. You've accepted the title sweeper. See how it works? So, Human Rights Act, if you quote that, saying you violated my human rights, you've accepted the act, you're now operating, you've agreed to operate within statutes, so you've lost the game, and also it makes you a taxpayer. So you've lost. Another little dirty trick they'll do, say it's tax, and you use their form, and you send off a form, and you're trying to get out paying tax or whatever it is, there'll be tick boxes on there. And it'll say, why are you contacting us today? What is it about? And you'll go down, and there'll be a box, and it'll say tax, and you'll tick it, like a slave. And what have you just done? You've agreed, you're a taxpayer, you've lost already, you're not going to win. If you go into court and the judge says, say you don't want to pay tax on your income. Income is the word used in legalese that is taxable. If you go into court and the judge says to you, do you have an income of £50,000 a year? You go, yes, Your Honour. You've lost. You've just agreed that you have an income that is called taxable, so pay the tax then. That's how they're tricking you. All right. So again, don't use acts and statutes on yourself, you'll lose, but you can use it on them. And the way you do that, you go, you quote the acts and statute, don't apply it to yourself, and then you can say, aren't you violating that? Haven't you done what? Aren't you going against your own rules? That's how you play the game. Come off the game board. Be the player, not the piece on the board. Does everyone understand that? Yeah, okay? We can get into that more. So hopefully that's understood. Get using your own paperwork.
Thank you. Anybody else want to say anything about this? No? Would you mind standing up and speaking loud so we can hear? Thank you, I'm so sorry.
Oh, man!
This is for you.
Right, so one of the problems we have in Scotland is they don't even care whether you respond or not. Council tax, for example, they just carry on regardless. They'll go to the court, get somebody warrant, and they'll send it off to sheriff officers, who then come and try and steal your property or arrest your wages or whatever, whether you respond or not.
Right.
How do we deal with that?
Right. Absolutely right. Now, here's the thing. We deal with remedies from the Sovereign Project. Now, if anyone in the SFT movement, which is Sovereignty, Freedom, Truth movement, says to you there is a guaranteed remedy, they're lying. Don't trust that. There's no such thing as a guaranteed remedy. There's a perfected one. There is one that should work because you've done it all and you know it should work. And this is another thing about remedies. Do not download something from the internet and send it off without understanding it. Don't do that. Study the remedy, understand it, and then you will know that it should work. And then if it doesn't, then you will know that you are a victim of crime. Which means the person on the other end is now a criminal because they're not actually following due process, not following your remedy that is perfected. So there's no such thing as a perfected remedy. And it's happening a lot. Happens to me. They don't respond. You send off your letters, notices. We've had it where, back in the day, I could get rid of a speeding ticket like 20 years ago because I would start serving notices on the police. I would get a response. I would go back and forth, and then it would be retracted. This seems to have gone now because the police are ignoring it. We've had reports that the police are now forging signatures just to force it. So in other words, if you send letters in, they'll fill out the form, copy it, and then that's what they're doing. So they're committing fraud. I absolutely have proof they have committed fraud against me, but I'm not going to go into that. It's a personal, private matter. So yes, we are fighting a completely corrupt system. Now ultimately, my game is to educate enough people on how the system truly works, and then you'll see all the cracks, and then you'll see the corruption, and you'll just walk away. So I'm not dealing with this anymore. I'm not dealing with any of it. I'm done. And when there's enough of us, we all walk away. What are they going to do? They can't come after all of us. And by the way, at that point, you'll be part of the Sovereign Network. All right? And we've got some really good plans. We're working on some very good stuff. So, you know, emergency response, we've got an app set up, we're setting up an app, we've got a legal team we're trying to put together, you know, true solicitors and barristers that are on my side, whole lot that we're dealing with, okay? Once the network is big enough, we walk away from the system. But for now, we're fighting it, right? We're the trailblazers, all right? There's a lot of us, we're fighting the battle, we're getting wounded. I was wounded, you know, I don't win every time. I win about 90% of the time. Sometimes you go up against a corrupt judge that doesn't follow the Bill of Rights, he doesn't even follow the bench book, anything, all right? So I don't want anyone to think that paperwork is going to save you. It isn't. Paperwork is the extension of your authority. It's your mindset that is going to save you. It's your attitude that's going to save you. You know, be angry. You know, bring it on. Who says? You know, that's what I want to see, especially from men. All right? Especially from men. If I see a man, or you know, lockdown, yeah, and they're locking down at home, and they're on quarantine, and they've got my mask on, I'm like, pathetic. Get away from me! Get away!
This is bullshit. On the mask.
Yeah. I know. Pathetic. We need more men. We need more men to actually take control of their lives, be responsible for their lives, become sovereign, okay, take dominion of their land, and we've got all this, yes, and then it's up to us men to protect the women and children.
Woo!
Yeah? Do you think there would be any paedophiles in England if we have so many sovereign men? No way. No way. They'd be strung up.
Transgenders or
none of it. Yeah, drag queens talking to 5-year-olds. No, The sovereign men have turned up. This ain't happening anymore. Go away. But that's another story. But we're working on it.
Thanks, Pete. Chris?
Go ahead.
Yes, quick response to your question. I think what Tony said earlier is so important. We need to understand their system. We need to understand how they are using a developed system. They've developed it against us. And they do it all the time. What we also need to understand is how to use their system against them. For us to benefit. And that's the key. And particularly, for instance, if somebody comes to you, your council goes on and on about council tax. You can start pushing back by using a law, particularly in Scotland, called the International Criminal Court Scotland Act of 2001, which makes it a criminal offence of conduct ancillary to genocide for them to ask you for money if you know, and you hand that money over, you commit the same offence, if you know that some of that money will go to the government and they'll use a portion of it for mass murder and genocide overseas. And that is the important issue. They don't know any of this. And so if you point it out to them and say, this is what the law says, Section 2 of the International Criminal Court, sorry, it's not a section, it's Article 2 of the International Criminal Court Scotland Act. So you understand the system and how to use it against them for us all together, rather than segmenting it.
Totally right, totally right. Don't apply it to yourself.
But in that particular case as well,
oh yeah.
In that particular case, when you're dealing with like council tax, if it's Scottish or English, right, it makes no difference. What they're doing is they're breaking their own rules immediately anyway. Because what they do is they'll have a little room like this that's hide in the courthouse, and they'll be like getting what they do 2,000, 3,000 warrants, you call it, instead of like the liability or whatever. There's no due process in there whatsoever, is there? You're supposed to have due process. What they've done is they've just sat there, and it's not a group like this, it's probably 2 or 3, and they're just like going over it on there and just doing all of those warrants, right? So it's not a legally executed warrant. It's not a legally executed liability order, whichever one that they're actually doing. Yeah. So the way that you can combat it, and you've got to remember, as being a man, right, you're not under their rules, but they are. So they have to follow it. This is the difference. We don't have to follow it, they have to follow it. So you can put them, right, in that box and say, well, okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use GDPR, right, and you have to reply legally. They have to reply under GDPR. So what you'll ask for, I need to see a copy of the legally executed warrant. And I'm asking for it under Article 15 GDPR. They have 30 days to reply with full compliance and full disclosure. And they can't because they haven't got one. So that is called a breach of data by concealment. So they are still concealing it because they alleged we had it. They've said to you, we've got it. So how come you can't show me it? Alright, so all you're going to do then, when you put it to them, they will breach the data, right, by concealing it, so they'll not reply with full compliance. You will then send the second, right, what you call an SER, subject access request, some people call it a DSOR, same thing, right, under Article 15, and you will say, well, I'm going to give you another 7 days to be a fully compliant, full disclosure of my data, because you haven't actually given me the legally executed, or a copy of the legally executed warrant on court paper with a signature, which is how it's supposed to be done. So then when they don't do that after the 7 days, right, then you can actually file to them. You're going to file a complaint with the ICO. You don't wait for a response, you just do it for the paperwork. You don't care what they even say and come back, because they'll just come back and take, I mean, you're asking the corporation to argue with the corporation, so that's a bit daft. But you can still file the paperwork. Once you've done that, then you send them a letter before action. And then you can actually file against the court, right, on an M1 for breach of your data. So just playing the game on there. Now they have to abide by those rules. So you can actually use those rules against them. So now you're actually taking them to court for breach of data. And that is like, extreme anxiety and distress caused by the breach of data, that you know that identity theft is flying through the roof. So that's how you're distressed about it. That's why you're asking for £5,000
compensation because of the distress, the anxiety, and the inconvenience of dealing with that. And then you get that £5,000 up to you and pay your council tax on. But use it against them and put that against them. It's exactly the same thing. So, and that's GDPR is so powerful that I think it was actually designed by them for them without realising that we would find out how to use it.
Yes.
So,
it's one of the tools we have.
When they come back and say, oh yes, we will answer your DSAR, but we want some form of identification.
I can answer that. I can
It
answer
doesn't
that.
matter though, right? I've done it before. I've done it with the Ministry of Justice. I've done it with the Council. I just got that.
But how do you respond?
Sorry, did you all
Okay.
did you all hear the question?
Jill asked a question.
What you'll have, right? They'll say to you, I want a form of ID before GDPR. Right? So I just sent them a copy of the bill. Actually, I haven't got bills, I'm lying. But I haven't got any bills. That's what's now, I'm completely out of the system, so I can't actually give them anything with a name or address on or anything like that. But normally, if you've got your bill and that's what they're chasing you for, give them a copy of the bill, that's it.
I've got something to add on this thing. This is one of these. Let me stand. Right. Okay. Let me get. If I.
Let you ask a question.
Yeah.
When you ask them, when you do a DSAR, I've had the response back. Oh yes, we'll answer your questions and give you info that you asked for, but we need a form of identification from you. So please send us your passport. Right.
No,
so
you can't ask for a photographic. They can't ask for photographic ID.
No, not a photograph, but some proof with address.
Let me answer this.
Can I just say that what I've done before you answer more professionally? That all I've done is written back and said, if you don't know who I am, why are you writing to me?
That's what I was going to say. Well done. That's the answer. That's the answer. Well done. Well done. And I'll just say one more thing. Do not get into legal debates with these people, especially debt collectors. They will send you documentation, right? Let's say, for example, you say that person does not live at this address anymore. Let's say you send that off. By the way, that's not lying. Person, what's that? Legal persona. Live, well, legal persona can't live. And an address, it's not the house, it's an address on a piece of paper. So you're not lying. So if you can send a letter back to the debt collector, this person does not live at this address. Now, if they send a letter back saying, can you tell us when he left? I'm not answering that. I'm not answering any of their questions. This is the sovereign mindset. You do not get into legal debates or arguments with these people in any way, shape or form. If they won't answer your questions, you keep asking it. You've got to do it 3 times and then you're in a position where you can sue these debt collectors. And like Gill says, if you use, if they contact you and then you hit them with a DSAR and then they come back and they say, we need to see proof of identification, then I'll say, well, you've contacted the wrong person and haven't you? Leave me alone. So, she's absolutely right. That's the answer to it. So hopefully everyone understands that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Off the back of what you're saying about the DSAR and GDPR, I've got 2 going on with Glasgow City Council at the moment. It started beginning of May and it's come to a standstill. And the last anything anybody heard from anything was, I think, July. They're just completely ignoring that DSAR stuff because I've got them banked rights as to, they've broken the law. But it's basically put on hold by the court. I hadn't heard anything from the court, I hadn't heard anything. I'm like, we've got £5 each. We've got 2 cases against them, and obviously they're wrong, but I've heard nothing. Yeah. So is there...
You've got ICO involved now?
What's that, right?
Have you got ICO involved now?
Yes.
Okay. It does take a long time.
Yeah.
It drags. It'll take 18 months.
Well, whenever I said to ICO, whenever I said them the first time, they said, oh, we've got in touch with Glasgow City Council. They're under a bit of pressure at the moment, but they know. So it's just waiting on me. It's my money.
Thank you.
Did everyone see the Rachel Eno video recently where she gets 11:13, nearly midnight, and she gets a visit from 4 goons, 4 police officers actually, and one of them, big dude, he's got a big heavy jelly, and he says to her, right, stand back. So she stands back, and he bashes the door in. But she made a very fatal error. What was the error? She complied with the request.
Yes.
So what do you expect? And sovereigns don't comply with requests. progress. You just stand still. So when on my travels, I came across, I think one of my talks, there was a senior guy, so he's in his 70s, and he's got a son, and he told me that his son, who's a special police patrol, you know, like the heavy mob, and his son said to his dad, "Dad, tell your freedom friends that if we give you an order to stand out of the way, whatever we say, do not comply. Ignore us. Because if you don't ignore us, we're coming in hard." Those are my words, not his, because I'm just making it up as we go along. That's what he meant, right? Okay? So you just stand still. They've got to walk around you. If they want to go behind you, you don't get out of the way and make it easy for them, because they could decide you've given them jurisdiction, right? So just stand still, and they have to walk around. So whatever you do, you don't comply, because compliance brings on more tyranny. You don't. However scary it is, you can't comply. So Rachel, should have just stood at the door. Go on then, bash the door in. If I go to hospital, or if you kill me, you're a murderer, you know? And that's it. And that would have solved. Instead, she stands back, and now she's bleating that she's been the victim of a breach of this and a breach of that. I personally don't give a shit. Right? I really, really don't give a shit. She brought it on herself. Okay, and I think she should have known better, to be honest. So I'm maybe being harsh, but we have to be harsh with our so-called comrades to bring them up to the level. It's no good a few of us knowing this. We've all got to know that, especially influencers like Rachel Eno. I'm not picking on her. I have no beef with Rachel Eno. I can't have any beef with anyone.
You do now.
I'm a beef. No, but that's the most recent and blatant example. So bless her for exposing this situation, so that we could all learn how not to bring a bash, you know, how not to have your own door bashed in, you know, and it's called human barricade. Well, it's called being sovereign and not compliant. But in worst case scenarios, you just stand against the door or get someone to stand against the door. They can't bash the door in because it's health and safety. They do follow that. It's health and safety. You can't bash the door in. Now, this is all very scary, but if this is what it takes, this is what it takes to do it.
Thank you, David. Right, just on a more mundane basis, but it's all about self-care, being sovereign. I talk about lunch. So, are people going to have sandwiches here, or are you going to head on? Who wants sandwiches here? Because I have to put the order through. So, can you put your hand up high if you want sandwiches here? Because there's a few of you, yeah? I'm going to do the wheel. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Okay, I'm telling you what they've got. So for £5.50 you're going to have tuna mayo, egg mayo, ham, cheddar, cheese, brown and white. So if you want that, when we break for coffee in a minute, can you just indicate that, and then you'll pay when you get it, just so they know how many rounds to make up. Yeah. Is that all right? Lovely. So we will break for coffee in a minute, or tea, or whatever. But do we have? They're not in yet. The tea top coffee will be
anybody that's not seen Leah, could they come over? It's probably easier now that folk came in at different times. Just to get their name on the list for Leah.
Yeah. If you can actually sit at the yes. So if you haven't paid or haven't got your blue band, go and see Leah. She'll just stand up so people know what you look like. So that's your payment. Yeah. And put your email down there if you want to know further information. I will have your email, but if you haven't had a reply from me, hopefully I've replied to everybody. But if I haven't, then put your email down there. So do you have another question at the moment, or do you want to continue on this subject? Yes, please stand up and speak loudly.
Yeah, what I was asking was, what happens when you don't turn up at a school? Are you assumed as a defender and willing to defend and granting the sheriff permission to make a judgment? Or are you indicating that you refuse to be classified as a defender and not complying with legislation and not granting the sheriff to make a judgment on your behalf? Of course, defender is defendant. So,
would you like to direct that to a specific person, or is it open to
anybody?
Anybody want to?
Oh, we've got someone in the audience who might answer the question. I'm all for that.
Well, I'm just mindful, can I say, because at the beginning a lot of people have paid to hear the clever vlogs. If you've had success stories, it is great, but otherwise we can lose it to the audience. But yeah, please do go ahead.
So through experience, what happens is it depends on the sheriff, because the sheriff can exercise their discretion.
Can you, sorry sir, would you mind standing here?
Yeah, stand in the centre. Get that sovereign voice out.
Go on, David.
There we go. He's on.
Remember me, David. So it depends on the discretion of the sheriff. So if you go to, or someone to go to court, or requested to go to court, and you don't go, the sheriff can either use their discretion to rule against you in your absence, in other words, continue with their corruption, depending on what the outcome they're wanting on the other party's side, that is, or they can then reschedule the court for another date and then write to you again and invite you back in again. So it's really up to the sheriff.
Where?
As someone who used to, you know, work in, yeah, solicitor. Okay, but no, it's not. It's more my recent education that tells me. So the answer is buried inside the question. You said it's a civil matter. Civil matters. What we need to learn with civil matters is not to give a shit. Because I'm living, I've got lots of civil matters on the go, but I don't give a flying fuck, right? Because they're civil, and I'm not a civilian anymore, I'm a man. Okay, so if you've got to decide, are you a man or a civilian? If you're a Roman civilian, then faff about and do the paperwork. Otherwise, forget about it. We've got to live paperwork-free lives, because life doesn't happen on a piece of paper or in a soft piece of software. It happens in real life. And the more time we spend faffing about with paperwork, the less time we've got to educate ourselves properly, to bring other people on board, to live a proper, fulfilled life. Yeah? So I don't want to diminish any particular issue that we might have, but generally speaking, we have to have the attitude that sovereigns don't faff about with paperwork. Yes? Now, I'm not saying never ever do paperwork, but I'm just saying that, you know, that we need to get away from that mindset.
I just want to, let me add just one thing as well, that maybe people don't understand. Does everyone understand that these courts, all of these courts, do not deal in law ever? Period. Even murder. Okay, now let me explain. It is all administrative courts. All of them. All of them. Even people go, what, Supreme Court? What do you mean Supreme Court? The only Supreme Court that I know of is mine. Their Supreme Court is corporate and administrative. So, what does that mean? Let's say you murder somebody. They've not arrested you and said, oh, you've committed a crime and you've killed someone. They're not saying that at all. What they're actually saying is you did not have the correct paperwork that should allow you to kill the person, therefore you violated policy and you're going to have to pay us probably £50 million. You don't have the £50 million, so they'll make a bond within the trust that's operating in the court. They'll put you in prison as collateral while the bond is paying off. Have you ever heard, you watch these TV, the movies, American TV or movies, courtroom dramas, and then the person is sentenced to 150 years. And you go, what do you mean 150 years? I ain't going to live that long. Why? How can I be sentenced to 150 years? That's the length of the bond that they've created, that they're now going to sell on the bond market. So the courts do not even operate the way you think they do. You think you're going in there doing law. No. It's operating as a trust. They're making money out of you. They're securitizing your paperwork. You know that speeding ticket you pay? You give them £1,000 or whatever. That goes into the judge's pocket. That's to cover his golfing membership. Thank you very much. But they securitize the paperwork. They make 100,000 out of that. This is why the police are out there with all the speed cameras. It's massive money. It's billions they're generating. So the courts do not work the way you think they do. Right? So they don't do law in any way, shape or form. I want to make that absolutely clear.
Also just add something to all of that that's been said, and that unfortunately the system doesn't work in the way we think it's working. None of these people understand any of this, and they are brought up within a particular group of information and habits and practices that they think is what it's all about. And everyone is different as well. And so the real problem really lies in something David said about going back to education. You're going to educate eventually the sheriff and the rest of them as to what the law actually says. And that civil law is totally different from criminal law. And in this situation, they don't realize it, but they are breaking the criminal law and they can get sent to prison. The sheriff, even our Attorney General and Prime Minister, and even the monarch can get sent to prison for up to 30 years for a crime under international law and international legislation and domestic legislation. That is, put them in prison for 30 years. So it's our job to start really pushing back to get them to understand the system. And the degree of understanding of it will depend, it'll be different for everybody. So be aware of that. You probably, by attending here today, will know much more than any of these sheriffs, any of the people who are coming up against you.
Anybody else from the panel want to add?
Yes,
Just
going back to the gentleman's question about the civil law, my experience is more on the criminal side. So I went to get a statutory declaration done for an alleged speeding offence. I turned up in a Glasgow court with a statutory declaration form, and I was talking to them, and they said, and they were quite aghast that, you know, this had happened all behind my back. They did it behind my back, so to speak. So I found out by accident I had 6 points, a £606 fine, and it had been applied to me like 8-9 months before, and I only found out because I was trying to hire a car. And I said, does this happen in Scotland? Because in England, obviously, it's 6 months. If they can't prosecute in 6 months, they have to let it go. In Scotland, it's 12 months, but they have to have you there in person. And I actually asked the magistrate, I actually asked the sheriff this, and said, we have to have you there in person, so we can't actually prosecute you unless we've actually got you there. Whereas in England, just, they'll fuck you left, right, centre, and you don't even know about it until a year later.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other? Yes, madam.
I just want to know the difference or how you feel about the way it's Hornseywood Academy, because I don't have the time like the gentleman to do all the paperwork because I'm trying to learn after for a special purpose. So trying to shortcut that, I did the Karl Hornseywood Academy, my name limited, and I felt a lot more comfortable with it. I can just say.
You want to touch on the limited company name?
So how do you?
I've got my name in limited company. I play fun and games with that.
Yeah.
I can go into that a little bit if you want.
I understand that Karl is just trying to get the trust.
So am I, and I'm very close.
So I thought that was interesting. I took time on to do it, and I've also back to it.
Yeah.
But I just want to know how that fits the.
So, okay, there's a lot in that question. Now, we might have to do it after a break, but does everyone do you want to learn about Sister KB Trust and how your credit is facilitated and the Foreign Scientist Trust? Yeah. All that sort of stuff. Yeah. All right then, okay, good. That's going to take a bit of time. I wish I had a whiteboard, because you're going to have to think three-dimensionally on this. Because I normally draw, I have a workshop and a chess club in Leicester, and we have this whiteboard, and I do my scratchings, and people can at least follow it. Right, limited number. Okay, where to begin? It all starts with the name. Now, do we all understand the difference between your given name, your family name, your forenames, and your surname? Yes. Right, so I'll just cover that very quickly. Given name is what is given to you by your natural mother and father. Your family name is what you get from your father. And that family name should have honour, integrity, and it should have a lineage, okay? It's from your father's house, okay? By the way, house means family. It's from a German word, Husam, meaning family. And what it all stems to, the man has first title of his house. And within his house, he has dominion, which means he makes the law, his word is law, and what he says within his dominion is law. Don't violate my house, otherwise I will chop you up into little pieces. Okay? We've got to go back to that. So that is based on the name. I'll just touch on this very quickly. Does everyone understand why when a woman marries a man, she takes the man's last name? It's because she is now being protected by the man. So the way it works, You've got to understand how names are important to understand ancestor KV and all the rest of it, and the surname, how it all works. You've got to have a base understanding. So the way it works is you've got the daughter, who is a fair maiden. Fair maiden, basically, she's come of age, but she's not married, so she's fair to be married. She is currently under the protection of her father's name, father's house. Think Al Capone. Are you going to mess about with Al Capone's daughter? No, you ain't. All right? So obviously the fair maiden has Al Capone's last name. Okay? Now when she marries a man, the father has to give his blessings and say, yes, that man you are marrying is a solid man. You can now take his name. So the woman marries the man, and her last name, the family name, changes to the new man's name. That means the wife is now protected by her husband. Okay, husband actually means man with resources. Alright, that's what it actually means. So when a fair maiden goes looking for a husband, she's actually looking for a man with resources. And this is why men today usually have the nice house, the nice car, the watches and all that sort of stuff, because they're saying, I've got plenty of resources, ladies, and we'll queue up. So anyway, husband means man with resources. So once the fair maiden has got man with resources, they get married. So the woman, the fair maiden, moves to a new house and is protected by the man. The system is incredibly insidious and evil. Because if you still had that system today, women and children would be 100% protected. 100% protected. There's nothing the government could do. Social services could not operate. All right? Schools could not operate the way they're doing things. So what happens is, what they've done is they've replaced true marriage with a corporate merger, which is state marriage, which is a three-way marriage. And this is where you lose your name. So what happens is, if you, again, they literally tell you this, you apply for what? A marriage license. And you haven't figured it out. So you're asking the corporation, the UK, can we get married? That's what a license means. You're asking, and they come back and say, yes, it's a corporate merger. The UK or Scotland corporation, whatever corporation you're operating in, has control of this three-way merger. And it's a separation of the man and the woman. This is the danger, all right? Because what's happened is, the man cannot and is legally not allowed to protect the woman at this point. And this is where surname comes into play. Because the woman has accidentally taken the surname. The surname belongs to the Vatican, okay, and partly to the central bank of said country, indirectly. Surname means surety name. It means you're the debtor. So they're telling you, you're the debtor. So, and also they will use names like forenames. You'll see it on forms. Can I have your forename? Can you have your surname? What's your national insurance number? And you'll fill it out like a pleb. Okay. So yes, surname, surety name. So that's a separation of the man and the woman. Woman is completely on her own. She's not protected by the man in any way, shape or form. And it's even worse than that, because the child is also registered. The child is a legal title. This is where it gets sick. It gets really sick. And child means chattel. Right? Chattel, as hopefully everyone knows, that is where you own an animal like pigs, goats, that sort of stuff. And of course you can do whatever you want to a pig or a goat. If you're a farmer and you're hungry and you want some bacon, well, the pig's going to get it. So children is chattel. This is where the hierarchy operates. So the title Mr. is lowest of the low. Then you've got titles going all the way up, like Sir, Jimmy, Savile. His title is higher than anyone else. He is above a police officer's down here. He is molesting children, not babies. The legal title, children. And in the eyes of the police, Jimmy Savile is doing nothing wrong. Because you agreed, you consented. Because what have you done? You married the state, you took the surname, you registered your baby. The baby, you are an informant on the form, and you are informing the state that you've given birth outside of wedlock. And you abandoned the baby in a state hospital. All state hospitals are foundling hospitals. A foundling hospital is where babies are left to be adopted, given away to the church. So the church scoops them up, puts the legal title on there called child, they can do whatever they want. And it's all legal. See, the difference between lawful and legal, people don't understand that. Dave mentioned it earlier. Law cannot be written, cannot be spoken. All right, it's just known here, or if you believe in God, you can say it comes from God. As soon as something is written down on a piece of paper, it becomes legal. And in the legal world, if two people consent, it's legal. Whatever it is, that's it. All right, so this is the dangers of getting married through state marriage. This is the dangers of actually registering your child. Now we understand that part of the puzzle. We can understand what's happened with the baby, right? So, if we've got time, or should we continue this after the break?
Yeah, the coffee, yeah, thank you very much.
Is it coffee now?
Yeah.
All right,
yeah.
we've got a little whiteboard.
Yeah, we have. So if we have a break, is that all right, Pete?
Yeah, let's have a break and then we'll get into the trust and the credit and all that sort of
stuff. So we've got, just before the applause breaks out, we've got tea and coffee at the back, help yourself. If you want your sandwiches and you have to put your name down or your tick, I'll leave it on the table so I can give that to the caterers. And we're what, 15 minutes?
Should we say 15 minutes, everyone?
15 minutes
yeah.
break.
And then we'll carry on part two. I do like it more. I do like it more.